So we are looking at the meeting agenda. What is the meeting agenda or agenda of a meeting, right? Why do you need to learn this? And maybe this is a question that you have asked, and maybe this is a question that some of the topics that we have been doing, you might be asking, what is the need? And I'm going to tell you again. On the paper 2 of the exam, section B is informative discourse. Now, on the section B, you can get anything to write, right? So that is why we have been doing all these topics to prepare you for whatever it is that CSEC asks you to do under section B of your paper 2. All right, so today we're looking at writing the agenda of a meeting. So let us look at the lesson objectives. All right, students should be able to, number 1, state what is an agenda of a meeting. 2, explain why an agenda of a meeting is useful. 3, identify the key components of an agenda of a meeting. 4, indicate strengths and weaknesses of sample agenda items. 5, prepare an agenda for a meeting. Now, before we get into the actual lesson, I want you to think, I want to get your minds going as we prepare to dive right into learning about writing an agenda of a meeting. All right, so it's time to think. All right, so think about these 2 questions. Number 1, what was the last meeting that you attended? 2, what made that meeting satisfying or unsatisfying? Now write those answers down for me quickly, because your answers are going to help you to better understand the agenda that we're looking at today, writing the agenda. All right? So 2 seconds to do that. So what was the last meeting that you attended? What made that meeting satisfying or unsatisfying? All right, so if you're watching via YouTube, write your responses in the comments. All right, now first, before we get into finding out what is an agenda of a meeting, it's good that we should first know what is a meeting, right? All right, now a meeting is a coming together of generally 3 or more people to exchange information in a planned manner and discuss issues set out before them to arrive at decisions, solve problems, etc. All right, so a meeting is a coming together to discuss anything, right? So we have to understand what is a meeting first, right? So if we understand what is a meeting, then we understand why it is that it is best to write an agenda of a meeting. So let us find out what is an agenda of a meeting. All right. In its simplest form, an agenda sets out the list of items to be discussed at a meeting. It should include the purpose of the meeting and the order in which items are to be discussed, so that the meeting achieves its purpose. This will later shape the minutes of the meeting. All right, so we're going to be looking at the minutes of the meeting, the next session that we have. All right, so an agenda is basically a plan, right? An outline of what is going to happen throughout the meeting, right? And that is why it is good for us to learn how to write an agenda of a meeting, right? Because we don't want to be in a situation where we are called to a meeting and the host of the meeting or the presenter is all over the place, right? Now, we will not like that, right? And many persons already don't like meetings, and to be in a meeting where the presenter or the host is all over the place, not organized, is going to further make us not like meetings, right? So an agenda of a meeting is basically a plan, an outline of what is to happen throughout the meeting. All right? All right. Why is an agenda important? Right? It's very important. As I said to you before, it is a plan, an outline of all the things to be discussed in the meeting or any other thing, right? Now, An agenda is important because of preparation. By outlining what will be covered in your meeting, your agenda will ensure all the attendees can adequately prepare. This might mean preparing discussion topics, supplementary materials, or other items. Now, usually, an agenda should be presented to the attendees before the meeting, right? A little beforehand, right? So an hour or sometimes even a day before, right? So that the persons who are attending the meeting can mentally prepare for what is to come in the meeting, right? And for the persons who will be presenting, they can have in their minds at what point it is that they will be talking or doing their presentations, right? So preparation is key, right? So it is important, an agenda is important because it helps with preparation, right? So as I said, many persons already don't like meetings, so it's good that some persons like to see the agenda so that they can have an idea that, okay, then this meeting will not last long, or they can say, oh gosh, this meeting is going to be so long, but at least they have an idea as to what is going to happen in the meeting. Creating your meeting agenda and sending it out, as I said before, well in advance means everyone can do what they need to come to the meeting and make it a success. If you want your meeting attendees to contribute with thoughtful comments, give them a chance to prepare. So don't be selfish, right? You are the one who will be conducting the meeting. Allow your attendees to prepare, right? So don't just make it a habit as to say, for example, the meeting is supposed to start at 9 and it is at 9 o'clock that you're giving the attendees the agenda. No, right? Give it to them beforehand. All right. Another reason why the agenda is important, it helps with scheduling and logistics. In the most basic terms, a meeting agenda will help everyone involved align their schedules and attend. And this is very important, right? Yes, meetings are mandatory within an organization, right? But we have to consider others, right? So say, for example, an employee had or has a doctor's appointment, right? It would be good if the staff members or the persons or the attendees could know beforehand so that they could change up their schedule so that they would be able to attend the meeting. That is why it is good to give it to them beforehand. By including the location or virtual room, date and time, and any necessary links, your meeting agenda will contain all the information people need to be there and adjust their calendars, right? Very important. So don't just hold it to yourself and wait until the time of the meeting to give the agendas. Consider others, persons, though they're at work, important things might have come up and they would want to know that, okay, then the meeting is at this time, so I can change things around so that I can be present for the meeting. You'll also include information on how long the meeting will run for and time box each section. And what we mean by time box each section, say for example, apologies and welcome, you say, okay, 5 minutes, right? So that persons can know, okay, then that's 5 minutes and it won't go over. So time box each section so persons or the attendees can know how long the meeting is going to last. If you have multiple people leading sections of the meeting, ensure you include clear timings for each of those sections so everyone can prepare and keep the meeting on track, right? And you have persons who are like that. They are stickler for time. So if you had time boxed, say, the section for discussions for, say, 15 minutes, you will have attendees who will keep a check of the time and say, okay, then the person is going over the time, right? So time box everything so that persons can know how long the meeting will run for. Productivity, and this is very important. even the most simple meeting agenda will enable both the facilitator and the participants to be productive, right? And productivity is key. Now, as I mentioned before, many persons don't like to go to meetings. They go because they know that it is mandatory and they have to show up, right? So they already have a mental block per se as it relates to meetings, right? So allow your meetings to be productive. Going into a meeting with a clear agenda and a time-boxed schedule means you and your group can be more effective and not get lost in side discussions or unagreed topics. In short, an effective meeting agenda clearly sets the stage for what will and what will not be included and can ensure everyone is pushing in the same direction during the meeting. So productivity is key. So when you allow the attendees to have the agenda beforehand, it helps the meeting to be productive, right? Because you will allow the attendees to give their input, right? So say, for example, someone can say, when you have prepared your agenda, the attendees can say to you, no man, this does not need to be discussed in the meeting. An email would suffice, right? And so on, right? So it helps your meetings to be productive, right? So when you give the attendees an opportunity to give their input, then the meeting should flow quite well. Get team buy-in. What do we mean by this? Going into a meeting without a clear agenda or an idea of what will be covered is frustrating for everyone involved, for true, right? And yes, separate and apart from meetings that are impromptu, right? But meetings that are scheduled, right? Like say a staff meeting that happens every month, right? It would be good for the persons to know what will be discussed in the meeting. We don't want the persons to go in blindly, right? Make meetings work for everyone by creating and sharing the agenda with the participants and agreeing on the formats. Very good. And what you want is, yes, you are the host and you are the one who will be conducting the meeting, but as I mentioned, you want the input of your attendees. Do not leave them out, right? Input is key, right? Because when you do that, when you allow the attendees to have an input, then when the meeting does start, your meeting will flow and you won't have persons interrupting and say, okay, why is this happening and all of that. Your meetings will go as planned and it will run smoothly, right? So when you have the attendees or you get team buy-in, then your meeting should flow as how you would have wanted it to go. All right? So make meetings work for everyone by creating and sharing the agenda with the participants and agreeing on the format. Getting everyone on board can massively increase the productivity of any project or meeting, and by developing a standardized agenda that makes it easy for everyone to understand and attend, they'll fit more naturally into your team workflow too, right? So getting everyone's input is good for you. Improve your planning. Now, we are not perfect, right? And I always say this to my students, and even yesterday, a student pointed something out to me. We're not perfect, we don't know everything, right? And we might have planned our meetings and we think it is perfect, and then when someone else sees it, they are able to point certain things out to you, right? And what this will do is to improve your planning, right? Because you will know what to include the next time, and this will help you to be a better planner or a host of the meeting, right? So it is going to benefit you, right? So it will improve your planning. Documenting your meeting agenda is the first stage in improving the quality of your meetings. Did you find that something in your agenda plan didn't work out? Need less time for old business and more time on new items or setting follow-up actions? Go back to your agenda and adjust, right? So when you improve, you go back and you realize that, okay, then the meeting did not go as how I wanted it to go, so I'm going to adjust this the next time around, and so on. So what you're doing is you're looking at the weaknesses that you had with the agenda that you had before, and you're going to make improvements so that the drawbacks that you had will not occur, right? So in essence, it does improve your planning. Improve meeting culture. Now, when you hear improve meeting culture, what comes to mind? Meeting culture. What is that? Let us find out what is meeting culture and how it will improve it. Creating a meeting agenda that works for everyone and has been refined over time can help make your entire team more productive and shift the mindset around meetings. Now, as I have been stressing that many persons don't like meetings, I don't like meetings, right? Because a lot of the meetings that I usually attend are after work. And when work finishes, I want to go home, right? So I already find it cumbersome to be staying back for a meeting, but I know that I have to, right? But if you create an agenda that is fun, that incorporates every staff member, then maybe you will have persons who do not find meetings monotonous and don't enjoy them. They go in and they're blank. They don't participate or anything. But if you include your attendees or your staff members, right, it will or might improve the meeting culture, right? That everyone will not come to the meetings and basically be dragging themselves to the area where the meeting is supposed to be held. Maybe you will have persons more perky, right, going to the meetings because they know what it is that the meeting will be about, and they know the time that the meeting or how long the meeting will last for. So it might improve the culture of meetings, all right? The work you do in meetings can and should improve the work you do out of them. And a better meeting culture can help teams communicate better, very important, surface issues effectively, and more. Because all in all, what we want is communication, and we want our staff members to be able to work well with each other and to communicate with you, right? Because you don't want it to be a situation where you send out the meeting agenda, and because you have this attitude, okay, it's my meeting and I know what it is that I want and whatever it is, so it should stay this way. No, right? Allow for communication. It will be better for you, right? So communication with your team is better. All right, it helps identify and remove ineffective meetings. Have you ever been to a meeting and you just tell yourself, say the meeting not going away? Yes, it happens a lot, right? And that is what we don't want. We want meetings that are going somewhere, where things come out of the meeting, right? All the things that you had planned, you see them coming to fruition, right? So we do not want to have ineffective meetings, or we don't want to develop a habit where we plan inefficient meetings. Sorry. A common complaint of most teams is that they have too many meetings, or that the meetings they have are ineffective. Agenda setting and following a process when developing your meetings can also help you and your team identify if a meeting should be run at all. Now, when you present your agenda, right, you have outlined that, okay, then a meeting will be held, say, next week, Friday at 10 a.m., right? And you send out the agenda way beforehand. Now, what this does is it allows the attendees to say, okay, then, looking at the agenda, they could say, okay, then based on everything that is on the agenda, a meeting is not necessary. All the information that you want to discuss can be sent via an email, right? There, right? It helps you, right? Because you would not have, there would be no need for a meeting, and all that time would not be lost, right? So that time that you would have used to do the meeting, then it could have been used to do something productive within the organization, right? So this is what we want, right? We don't want to develop a habit of having ineffective meetings. So when you send the agenda out beforehand, then you will get the input of your staff members or the attendees, and they can say to you, okay, then a meeting is not needed, or this time slot is too long, or whatever it is, right? So that the meetings will be effective, sorry. All right, so we're now looking at the functions of an agenda. An agenda is a tool for attendees, including, but not limited to, the chairperson and secretary. It serves several functions before, during, and after a meeting. These functions include: it helps potential attendees decide whether they need to attend. Very important. By setting out what will be discussed and for how long, it shows potential attendees whether they are crucial to the discussion and whether it is crucial to them. They can then make an informed decision about whether they attend or make their contribution in writing or via another attendee. So this is very important, right? So if it is not necessary for a staff member to attend the meeting, then there would be no need for them to attend unless it is a general staff meeting, right? So sending out the function of the agenda is to facilitate this, for a person to decide whether or not they need to attend and so on. It helps invitees to prepare for the meeting. Very good, right? So as I mentioned before, preparation is key, right? So when you send the agenda out beforehand, the persons who will be presenting will know what it is that they should prepare and at what time during the presentation they will do their presentation. Along with any papers, it allows them to understand what will be discussed and to think about the issues in advance. Very important. They can also prepare any facts or figures so that they have the necessary information to hand to make an effective contribution. Now, think about it. If you have been to meetings, have you ever been to a meeting and the person who is doing the presentation is not prepared? They're all over the place and you're saying to yourself, what is this, man? Why is my time being wasted here? Now, if the agenda was sent out, right, then the person would have known what it is that they should present. And also, bear in mind, too, that if the meeting is at 9, you cannot expect to send the agenda 5 minutes before the meeting, right? That would not be effective, right? So it's best that you send the agenda out a few days before. So it helps with your planning as the host, and it helps with the planning of the persons who will be presenting. It provides a structure for the meeting, right? An agenda provides structure. So what you want is, you don't want it to be a situation where the meeting is all over the place. This minute we are doing a brain teaser, then adjournment, then welcome and notices. No, it provides structure, right? From beginning to end, you know what is coming first, second, third, and so on, right? So an agenda provides structure. It means that anyone, diverting from the topic can be brought back to the matter in hand quickly and easily. And remember, and I know that for a fact, that you have persons in a meeting who are like that. They will say, right, look at the time, right, and they will say, point of information, I think you're deviating from the point, and so on, right? So it helps with structure. All right. Similarly, it allows the chair to control the meeting. A timed agenda is especially helpful for this, since the chair can move on to the next item when the time is up, asking attendees to continue the discussion elsewhere if necessary. All right, so there's always someone who is the chairperson for the meeting or the host of the meeting, right? Now, when we have an agenda, right, a structure, right, a clear structure, it helps the person or the chairperson or the host to control the meeting, right? So say, for example, we are at, say, new business, right? We don't want someone to come and say, okay, then, point of information, I'm apologizing for the absence of so on. No, that section passed already, right? And you would just simply say to the person, okay, then just indicate to the secretary or whoever is taking the minutes that, okay, then this person sent an apology for their absence, right? So the chair will know what is coming, right? So, and will tell the person, okay, then this is not the time for this, all right? So it helps the chair, right, the chairperson or the host to control the meeting. Finally, it gives a way in which the meeting's success can be judged. Because the agenda includes the purpose, attendees can see whether the meeting has achieved its aim or not. This makes it clear whether future meetings are necessary on the same subject. Now, this is important because you don't want it to be a situation where in the future the attendees choose or opt not to come because the previous meetings that you had were not successful, right? So what you want to do is to ensure that the agenda or the meeting has achieved its purpose. And you will know that based on what you outlined in the agenda. All right, so now we're going to be moving on to the key components of an agenda, right? So this is very important because this is going to let you know how it is that you are going to structure your agenda, right? And the key items that you must include in your agenda. Now think about it. Have you ever seen an agenda before, right? Write in the comment section below, if you're watching via YouTube, what are the key components of an agenda? What are some of the titles that you tend to see quite often on an agenda? Write them down quickly. Let everybody know what it is that you're thinking. All right. So the key components of an agenda. There are, in general, 5 or 6 broad areas to be covered in an agenda. All right. So the first one, logistics. This includes date, time, and place of meeting, its title, and a list of invited attendees. All right. Now, it is not really necessary for you to include the invited attendees on the agenda, but what is important, or the items that are important, are the date, time, and place, right? So you can't have a meeting and you don't know what date and what time, right, and where the meeting will be. Now, it is very frustrating when, yes, you have the date and the time, but you don't know where the meeting is going to be held. What if it is a big organization, say like TVJ Studios or the compound where RGR Communications Group is? There are so many areas. Where will the meeting be held? You have to be specific. Don't allow your meeting attendees to be walking up and down and asking persons, where's the meeting being held? Where's the meeting being held? That is not productive, right? Persons already don't like attending meetings. Don't frustrate them by allowing them to be walking up and down to find where the meeting is going to be. And there are some instances when they do find it, they're penalized for being late, and it wasn't their fault. And sometimes when they do arrive, there are not enough seats for them and so on, right? So preparation is key. All right, objective. The purpose of the meeting and any background information, such as whether this is the first in a series of meetings. That is very good to include, I would think, right? Say, for example, it is the first meeting of the academic school year or the academic year, right? It would be good for you to include that on the agenda. Housekeeping. Now, what do we put in housekeeping? Now, the important aspects of housekeeping is highlighted in red, right? So housekeeping, this should include welcome and introductions and any apologies, for absence. Very important. It should also cover approval of previous minutes and matters arising. Very important. Matters arising from them that are not dealt with elsewhere in the agenda. In a formal meeting, housekeeping will also cover any amendments that are necessary to the last set of minutes, which should be formally documented in the minutes of this meeting. All right, so housekeeping, all the things that are very, very important, right? So welcome and introductions, right? Persons who will be presenting, right? You would, introduce them to the attendees or the staff members here. Apologies for absence, persons who were not able to attend the meeting. Approval of previous minutes. This is very important because the minutes of a meeting should be shared with the attendees, right, or with the staff members, right? And for the persons who were at that meeting, they would know, okay, then, okay, this was not said, and so amendments could be made to the minutes of the previous meeting. So this is very important, right? And any matters arising from the previous meeting that were not able to be discussed, right? So all these housekeeping things are very, very important. So they must be included in your agenda. So the welcome and introductions, apologies for absence, approval of previous minutes, and matters arising must be included in your agenda. All right, items. This is the meat of the agenda. Each item should have a number, a title, and a presenter or lead. It should also have a suggested time limit on the discussion. Now remember, we had mentioned about preparation and a structure for the meeting. Now this is what is happening, right? There is a clear structure of our meeting, and this is very, very important. Timing can be hard to ascertain without previous experience of the meeting. The secretary may need to ask the presenter or lead how long they think a particular item will take and then discuss it with the chair. All right? So these things are very, very important, right? This is where the important part of the meeting is going to be fleshed out, right? So it is good, right, that you say, for example, you're presenting on the vaccine, right? What persons are thinking about the vaccine and so on, right? It is good that you inform persons what is going to be discussed, what the presenter is going to be discussed, right? So persons attending the meeting can have an idea as to what will be discussed so that they don't go into the meeting blindly. The final allocation should be based on the item's importance to the objective of the meeting and its level of controversy. A very controversial item that is incidental to the objective of the meeting should be postponed for discussion elsewhere. And why is this important? Sometimes when we include controversial items, it might disrupt the meeting. So the chair may lose a hold of the meeting, right? So the chair may not be able to control the meeting when this controversial item is brought up in the meeting. So if this particular item can be discussed elsewhere, do not include it on the agenda for it to be discussed in the meeting, right? Any other business, A or B. Many agendas end with an item on any other business or AOB. While this can be an opportunity, for attendees to flag up something for inclusion in a future agenda, it can also be very disruptive to the smooth flow of the meeting. All right, so any other business is usually where persons give their input, or staff members or attendees would give their input, right? And it would be good too, as the chair of the meeting, for you to gauge any other business. So if you realize that it is something that is not important to be discussed here, then you could just gauge the person and say, okay, then if you wish to speak to this person outside of the meeting, then I suggest you do so, right? But we would not like for it to be brought up here, right? So, the controversial items, or if the person is bringing up something controversial, you can direct them to speak to the person outside of the meeting or whatever it is, so that you can not allow the meeting to be disrupted. Attendees can use AOB to hijack a meeting for their own purpose and change the whole feeling of the meeting, often from a highly positive, action-focused discussion to a complaint, as I mentioned before, right? So you would just gauge the person away from bringing up this controversial item. As AOB traditionally comes last, it is also the item that attendees are most likely to remember, especially if it was negative in tone. Jeez and peas, this part. When I'm having or attending a meeting, this is the part I really don't like, because this is where persons tend to go on and on and on and on and on and on. And this is where the meeting tend to go over, right? So, as the chair, you would just, guide the person, say, okay, then this is not something that should be discussed here, and so on. Trust me, I don't like when persons just continue to talk, and if it's not something that is beneficial to the meeting, right, it, drives me crazy, and I'm sure it drives other persons crazy too. So the chair would just say, okay, then let's discuss this outside, or in the quarterly meeting or something like that, right? So just gauge the person away from, dragging the meeting on. A well-run meeting with a well-prepared agenda should mean that nobody wishes to raise any other business. Very important. It is therefore strongly recommended that you either do not include AOB as an agenda item at all, or if you do include AOB on the agenda, you agree that it would only be as a way of raising issues for discussion at a future meeting or elsewhere, right? So bear this in mind. Bad feeling from excluding AOB can be avoided by offering attendees the opportunity to suggest items for inclusion on the agenda ahead of time. So, very important, planning, preparation. It is, however, the chairperson's final decision about which items should be included, taken into conjunction with the secretary and his or her role as guardian of the process. All right, and then now we're moving on to the close. This should include the chair's summary of the meeting, the date and the time of the next meeting, and any actions agreed and who is responsible. All right, so what have we learned so far about the agenda of the meeting? Has anything resonated with you? All right, so we're moving on now to how to write an effective agenda of a meeting. Clearly identify and articulate the meeting's goals. And this is very important. Now, as I mentioned earlier, preparation, planning is key, right? So don't just list the items and then, or the presenter is going to be presenting. You do not outline the name of the presenter and what the person is going to be presenting on, right? This is very important. As I said to you before, persons usually don't like meetings, so you don't want them to go in and already want to leave the meeting. One common frustration point for meetings is that not everyone is on the same page regarding the goal or purpose of the meeting. Be absolutely clear on what falls under the remit of the meeting and what falls outside of it. By doing this, you can ensure all attendees are aligned going into the meeting, and you can also identify if additional work needs to be done elsewhere. All right, very, very important. Ask participants for input, right? So you are the chair of the meeting, but guess what? You're not the only person who will be in the meeting, so it's good that you ask for the participants' input. If you're running a meeting that would benefit from the input of participants, ask them to contribute ideas or possible agenda items in advance of the meeting. Not only can you ensure that the meeting is fit for purpose, but can also source the best ideas and get team buy-in too, right? So when you ask for participants' input, they feel as though they are appreciated, they are needed, right? And this is very good, because what this does is create camaraderie in the organization or the department. You might also find that some sections of the meeting are best led by certain team members or stakeholders. Be sure to liaise with those people beforehand and let them know what sections they'll be running, when, and for how long. Switching meeting leaders can be productive, but only if everyone has had a chance to prepare, right? So what this does is you're able to highlight person's strengths and weaknesses while working with them. So if you know that this person is good at graphics, talking about graphics and so on, and the meeting is about creating a web page and so on, you would say, okay, then Amanda is good at this, so I'm going to ask her if she would like to present on this area, right? So what you do is you incorporate different staff members so that they can get the opportunity to shine. List the topics you want to address. And this is very, very straightforward, right? Everything that you want to be discussed in the meeting, you just ensure that you write it down on the agenda. Identify the purpose of each task, right? Now, what you want is you want smooth flow of your meeting. So when you write down the purpose of each task, the attendees will know, okay, then this is important to be discussed here and so on, right? Because as I mentioned before, you want everybody's input in the meeting. Time box, and this is very, very important. Meetings that are effectively time-boxed are more productive and less frustrating. Try not to overrun and set times for each and every section of your meeting agenda. This can help prevent meandering conversations and keep everyone focused. Furthermore, people are less likely to dread attending your meetings if they run on time and they can schedule around them without worry, right? So, when you time box each section, right, then the persons will know that, okay, then the meeting is going to last for an hour and that is it. So they already have it in their mind's eye that, okay, then I'm only here for an hour, right? So when you time box each section, it is beneficial to you. So you won't have persons there fidgeting and so on, right? They will know, okay, then it's for an hour and I'm just here for that hour, all right? So time boxing is very, very important. So moving on, be simple and clear. Meetings do not need to be complicated and neither should their agendas. Keeping your meeting agenda simple, clear, and short for the best results. You want your participants to get a sense of the meeting easily, understand what they need to do to prepare and attend. Remember that people tend to have more meetings than they would like. Don't make it difficult for them to attend yours, right? So don't make it be cumbersome, right? For them, right? Be simple and clear, right? No words and all of these things, because this throws people off, right? And when you have like, it's an hour, or the person come and they say that it's 2-3 hours, oh my gosh, right? You already lose the people then, right? So be simple and clear, right? Stick to what it is that each person is going to be discussing and outline it in the agenda. All right, create a reusable template. And this is very important for you, the planner, right, or the host of the meeting. When you have a template, all you do is you just go back and just take whatever, take things out and just add things for the next meeting. So it's very important that you have a template. So what this does, this helps you to plan better because you've already created a template that you are going to continue to use, right? So it's good for you. Keep it focused. Right? A common mistake when designing a meeting agenda is to try and cram too much in. Oh, trust me. This throws the staff members off, right? Don't cram too much, right? And then, as I said, when you send the agenda beforehand, the attendees or the staff members can know, okay, then this does not need to be here. This doesn't need to be here. Just send an email for this or whatever it is, right? So it will not be so much, right? So keep it focused. get feedback. That is very, very important. You want your staff members, your attendees to be able to come to you and say to you, okay, then I don't think this will work here, so, you know, or can this be discussed in a different meeting or whatever it is? You want feedback. So don't be so hard and fast and so stuck up that you don't want anybody to say to you, okay, then this wasn't effective this time around, so don't include it here or whatever it is. You do want feedback, right? Because at the end of the day, it is going to help you to have better meetings. All right. So now we're looking at an outline or a template of an agenda. Now, when you look at it, what are some of the things that we have discussed that you see on the agenda? Are there any things here that are familiar to you based on what we have looked at so far? Right? So we have the date, the time, place of the meeting, very, very important. So call to order, roll call, right? The same thing as apologies and so on, persons who are here or at the meeting, approval of previous minutes, chairperson's report, monthly status, update on volunteer activities. So if you look at this, I think this is a very good agenda template, right? So I think it has incorporated all of the things that we have discussed so far. So this is a very good meeting agenda template. All right, so work at home time. So based on everything that we have discussed so far or learned so far, we are going to be looking at the strengths and weaknesses of an agenda, right? So let us do that. All right, so we have a meeting agenda here. Now, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking at this meeting agenda and you're going to try to identify the strengths and the weaknesses based on what it is that we have discussed so far, right? So we already know what it is that we should include in the agenda because I taught you that not too long ago, right? So you should be able to tell me the strengths and the weaknesses of this particular agenda. Do that quickly for me. And also, you can include the comments or put down the answers in the comments if you're watching this via YouTube. All right? So I'm going to tell you the strengths and the weaknesses that I found in this meeting agenda. All right? Strengths. It allows time for activities, prevents members from getting bored, right? Because I see where they have, you know, different sessions for persons to play games and so on, to interact with the attendees, and that is very, very good, right? So you don't want a person to be sitting down for too long. Let them get up and, you know, if the meeting is long, let them get up and stretch their legs and have refreshments for them and so on. And this meeting agenda allowed for that. Also, clear outline of what will be done in the meeting, right? It was very good as it relates to that. Weaknesses: no call to order, no approval of previous minutes, time allotted is not sufficient for the number of items, and there was no adjournment. Remember, the adjournment is very, very important because you want to know who were the persons who moved for the meeting to be adjourned, because these are important things that should be included in the minutes of the meeting. All right, so for our homework now, right, practice as a secretary of a literary and debating society in your school. Prepare the agenda for the annual general meeting of the club. The meeting is to be held in the school's auditorium at 3 p.m. on Friday, the 23rd of April, 2021. The general business of the meeting will include election of officers, treasurer's report, proposals for ventures for the coming term, and increase in membership fees. So let us see how well you are able to put together your agenda for the meeting. All right, and that's it for our lesson on the meeting agenda.